every C++ program has to have a main. It'll go to these braces, this is fine. It'll go to this comment, it'll find it okay. Then it'll go to this. At this point, the computer has no idea what cout means. And in order for it to tell what cout means, I need to give him a definition of what cout means. And that definition is in this header file. So when I include these two lines, it allows me to use this to print to the screen. So इसकी definition इस library में पड़ी हुई है, इस header file में पड़ी हुई है. Similarly, if I were to use a math key function, I want to calculate a to the power 5, right? Or 7 to the power 8. As far as the computer is concerned, he doesn't know what a raised to power b is. But in order to tell it कि a raised to power b का क्या मतलब है, मुझे करनी पड़ेगी library include जिसका नाम है math dot h. कि अच्छा ये a raised to power b का क्या मतलब है. Similarly, so ये हम आगे जाके करेंगे, लेकिन फिलहाल हम एक चीज ऐसी यूज कर रहे हैं जिसका कंपाइलर को नहीं पता cout का. उसको बताने के लिए हम उसे कहते हैं कि ये cout defined है इस library में. So I'm including this at the top because every program will need to print library जो कि मैं हर program के साथ include करता हूँ कि भाई इसके अंदर ये चीजें defined है so that you know where it is. ठीक? So this is the function of sort of these include these header files. Okay, there's some code written by others that I would like to use. Now, if I want to print, so if I want to print 3 plus 4, so if I look at this print statement, what this is essentially doing is it's going to print the values 3 plus 4 is equal to onto the screen as a string. It's literally going to print 3 plus 4 is equal to. What if I want to computer to print the answer of 3 plus 4? So the way to do this, if I want to evaluate or calculate sorry for my typos, but essentially what the way to do this is I say 3 plus 4, and what the computer at this point will do is it will calculate कि 3 plus 4 की value क्या है, and it's going to print this to the screen. So when I run this, this line will print something else, and this line will print something else, because this line will actually do the mathematical operation 3 plus 4 and uska answer screen पर लिखेगा. ठीक है? So when I say this, पहली line लिखेगी 3 plus 4 is equal to, दूसरी line लिखेगी 7. And this is the behavior. cout, you can ask the computer to calculate stuff. So when I say 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 is going to calculate all of this, is going to say 11 plus 7 is going to actually print 18 onto the screen. Because वो सारे को calculate करेगा. And there's a whole bunch of operations that you can do. You can do minus, you can do multiply, and BODMAS applies. So in this case, it's going to say 5 times 6, 30, minus 30, plus 7. इसलिए minus 23 उसने screen पे print कर दिया है. So whatever I put directly, cout will evaluate it और उसका answer को print करेगा. वेरिएबल्स पे आते हैं. अरहम हम वेरिएबल्स पे आते हैं. वेरिएबल्स भी हम प्रिंट कर सकते हैं, लेकिन अभी फिलहाल हम वेरिएबल्स इंट्रोड्यूस नहीं किए, अभी करेंगे. ठीक है? फिलहाल अभी हम couts कर रहे थे कि I can concatenate couts. I can say 3 plus 4, I can say and I know कि हम \n भी यूज कर सकते हैं. And so this is going to say first maths program on one line 3 plus 4 is equal to minus 23. So this tells you that the computer is going to follow my instructions to the fullest even though the answer is stupid. This is not 3 plus 4. It's not minus 23. लेकिन क्योंकि मैंने calculate किया, so this is not this is logically incorrect, but this is syntactically perfectly fine. So the program will not catch this. 3 plus 4 की वैल्यू -23 नहीं होती, उसने सिर्फ उसको इवेलुएट करना है एंड टू एंड और आंसर स्क्रीन पर लिखना है. अगर आपने गलत प्रोग्राम लिखा है तो आपको गलत आउटपुट आ जाएगा. सो दीज आर कॉल्ड लॉजिकल एरर्स. अगर मैं सेमीकोलन नहीं डालता तो इट्स गोइंग टू थ्रो अ सिंटैक्स एरर. देयर इज अ डिफरेंस. कंपाइलेशन नहीं होगी बिकॉज वो कहेगा कि आप लैंग्वेज की ग्रामर को वायलेट कर रहे हैं. सो दिस इज कॉल्ड अ सिंटैक्स एरर. लेकिन आई कैन हैव, so this is clearly a logical error. 3 plus 4 is equal to -23 is not correct, but the program will not catch it. As far as the program is concerned, the program ran successfully. It's just going to do the wrong things. So remember हमने शुरू में कहा था your algorithm has to be exact and it has to be correct. This is not an incorrect. So if I want the correct one, I'm going to do this. And now this is syntactically correct and it is logically correct as well. ठीक? So these are just sort of some of the basic things. Endl command used for blank line, it goes to the next line. If I put 2 endls, it's going to give me a blank line because वो एक line पे जाएगा और फिर उससे अगली line पे चला जाएगा. ठीक है? So this is a blank line. लेकिन अगर खाली endl लिखता हूँ, it just goes to the next line. End of line है ना, तो अगर मैं 2 end of line इकट्ठे डाल दूंगा, इसका मतलब है कि वो पहले एंड ऑफ लाइन के बाद जाएगा अगली लाइन पे, उसके बाद उससे अगली लाइन पे चला जाएगा. तो दिस विल इंट्रोड्यूस अ ब्लैंक लाइन इन देयर. For a blank line, we can use a \n command as well. So this same thing, endl with those sort of braces can actually be written like this. It's the exact same thing. It's the exact same output. ठीक? So ये था concatenate करने का cout statements. अच्छा, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is something called variables. अभी एक question पूछा गया था. Variables are in endl and \n are exactly the same thing. Yes, Arham. For our purposes, yes, they're exactly the same thing. Okay, variables की हमने शुरू में बात की थी कि हमने कहा था कि variables are places in memory where we can store stuff. ठीक है? लेकिन अभी हमने जो पीछे कर रहे थे स्क्रैच में, हम वेरिएबल बनाते थे स्कोर का या एज का या जो भी, हम उसकी टाइप स्पेसिफाई नहीं करते थे. हम ये नहीं कहते थे कि अच्छा ये इसमें सिर्फ नंबर्स आ सकते हैं, इसके अंदर सिर्फ एबीसी आ सकती है, इसके अंदर सिर्फ 0-1 वैल्यूज आ सकती हैं, या इसके अंदर स्ट्रिंग आ सकता है. एक्चुअली C++ में क्योंकि वी हैव अ लॉट मोर कंट्रोल, वी कैन एग्जैक्टली स्पेसिफाई कि ये जो मेमोरी लोकेशन है, इस डब्बे में मैं नंबर स्टोर करूंगा कि उसमें मैं स्ट्रिंग स्टोर करूंगा कि उसके अंदर मैं क्या चीज स्टोर करूंगा. राइट? ऑल ऑफ दोस थिंग्स कैन एक्चुअली बी स्पेसिफाइड. सो फॉर आवर पर्पसेस, the type that we're going to use most often in this class, for now, in the next few classes, is something which is called an integer. This is a data type. What that means is that this is, I'm telling the compiler that this number can only have a whole number. This can only be a whole number. It doesn't have decimal values. And an integer, so when I declare an integer, शुरू में इस्तेमाल करने से पहले मुझे integer declare करना पड़ेगा. So declare करने का जो syntax है वो ये है कि I have to give it the type. तो मैंने ये कहा कि जी this is the type is integer. उसका नाम मैं दे देता हूँ variable1. ठीक? Is equal to 0. So what this is actually saying is कि go to this location, create a location, give it the name variable1 and store the value 0 in this dabba. So go back to our thing. So let's say we had this variable called age. So what I would say is create a dabba, call it age, and store the value 45 in here. And this dabba will only hold integers. If I put anything else, treat that as an integer as well, क्योंकि ये integer ही है. So I'm actually telling the computer कि इस डब्बे में सिर्फ integers आएंगे. Similarly, I can create multiple such dabbas. I can say int variable 2 is equal to 10. Int variable. अच्छा, variable के नाम के जो है ना, there is some convention. So, now I have created 3 boxes and I have put in numbers in each of these boxes. I have initialized them as well. This is actually good habit to initialize variables. Okay, initialize मैं वेरिएबल अच्छा अगर मैं let's say मैंने initialize पे हर सारे वेरिएबल को मैंने जीरो से initialize कर दिया था, ठीक है? This is actually good programming habit. लेकिन I can declare variables like this as well. Int age, sorry, variable 1. ये भी equal ही declaration है. This is just a better way of doing it where I'm actually initializing all of them as well. ठीक? लेकिन I can, so what, line number 14 को अगर आप देखें तो essentially I've created 4 variables, age, variable 1, variable 2, variable 3. तो essentially मैंने 4 डब्बे बनाए हैं और उसको मैंने declare कर दिया. Now I can use it in my program. Because now they are declared. वो जो जिस तरह हम scratch में कर रहे थे ना, अच्छा, the variable actually gets saved in the memory, आमना, और मेमोरी के अंदर वो एक जगह बना देता है. जब ये प्रोग्राम खत्म होगा ना तो ये वेरिएबल डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाएगा. दिस इज ओनली अलाइव फॉर द ड्यूरेशन ऑफ द प्रोग्राम. सो वंस द प्रोग्राम गेट्स टू द एंड ऑफ दिस ब्रैकेट मेन की, these variables will cease to exist. ठीक है, दिस इज कॉल्ड द स्कोप ऑफ वेरिएबल्स, लेकिन उस पर बाद में आते हैं. फिलहाल कॉम्प्लिकेट ना करें चीजों को. ठीक है, सो पहले मैंने किया एज इज इक्वल टू 45 int अच्छा now type variable का नाम और उसकी value. This is how you typically declare a variable. If there are some questions, line 14 the set the value to 0. Now line 10, so line 10 is now setting the value to be 0. ठीक है, so typically it's good habit कि जब भी आप वेरिएबल डिक्लेयर करें उसको इनिशियलाइज भी करें किसी नंबर से, या 0 से करें या जिस मर्जी चीज से करें. इन दिस केस मैं 45 से इनिशियलाइज कर रहा हूं इसको. ठीक है, नाउ ये जो वेरिएबल्स हैं, जो वेरिएबल के नाम हैं, दे हैव टू हैव सर्टेन sort of properties. So I cannot declare a variable and call it include, for instance. Yeah, I cannot call it main. This is a reserved word. So remember that I said that there are certain words जो कि C++ से खुद ही इस्तेमाल कर सकती है. Main is one of them. So if I run this program, it's going to throw a fit because now, well, it didn't, it did not throw a fit, which is strange. But this is actually a bad way because main means something else as far as C++ is concerned. So let's say if करते हैं इसको. This is a reserved word. If else में, this is going to say this is a problem. So there are certain properties जो कि in variables की हो सकती हैं. These variables can contain letters, digits, underscores. So this is, I can actually say age1 underscore 5 ASDF. This is a variable name. So typically होता ये है कि most people use int a, b, c, d. Variable names need to be descriptive. They should mean something to you in the context of the program. Once again, not needed for the correctness of the program. I can literally say a, and that's fine. लेकिन readability effect होती है. So if I want age to represent a to represent age, I will actually say age, right? और इसके अंदर बाज़ चीजें हैं जो rules follow आप कर सकते हैं. So this is a valid variable name, but it doesn't really mean anything, right? So there are some rules that you need to follow. Rules क्या हैं? Contains letters, digits, underscores, must begin with a letter or an underscore. Names are case sensitive. So if I say int age and I say int age, there are two different variables. Okay? So when I say cout age, by the way, so this is, I can now actually, so this is actually going to print the variable age onto the screen. So if I say cout age, so abhi piche ek question aaya tha ki what, so now I have declared an integer and stored the value 45 in it, and when I say cout age, it printed the value 45. Okay? What if I did not initialize this? This is why initializing it is important. When I don't initialize this and use it somewhere in the program, I have no idea what it's actually going to print there. So in this case, it initialized it with the value 0, and it could actually, and this is a lot of times people end up with these errors. In this smaller program, he initialized it to a 0, but you should know exactly what your variable is supposed to mean, and therefore it's actually a great idea to initialize them so that you know exactly what it means later on in the program, because you don't want to leave it to the compiler, and that's the source of a lot of errors as you go on later. You need to initialize your variables so that you know exactly what's there and not some unexpected value, क्योंकि वो फिर compiler to compiler vary करती है. अगर आप एक कंपाइलर में कर रहे हैं तो वो जीरो से इनिशियलाइज कर देगा, एक कंपाइलर उसको किसी और चीज से इनिशियलाइज कर देगा, ये एक कंपाइलर इनिशियलाइज नहीं करेगा, and that's where you end up into errors. So good idea, declare variables that mean something, the name, initialize it to some value, and so that you can actually make sense of them as you go along. अच्छा, name के अंदर white space characters नहीं आ सकते. when I say int age and don't give it a value, this means not initializing. So this is, I have created a variable, but I haven't put anything there as yet. So this means not initializing a variable. So that's a bad programming habit, really bad programming habit. And this is something, if there's one thing that you take from here, variables need to have meaningful names, and you put something in there so that you know exactly what's there when you access it later on in the program. Even if you want to put zero, put the zero yourself rather than relying on the compiler to put that zero. Acha, names cannot have special characters or white spaces. I cannot say name is age, blah, blah, blah. This is not valid. This is not a variable name. The variable name has to be contiguous. It cannot have special characters, no stars, no nothing, etc., etc. And it cannot have reserved words. So जो words C++ इस्तेमाल करती है, आप वो नहीं कर सकते. So these are just some properties. अच्छा, as far as C++ is concerned, you can declare variables of several different types. Integers are whole numbers. ठीक? So अभी हमने एक declare किया था variable age का, and we gave it the value 45. If I were to give it the value 45.5, ठीक? What will it do? It will know कि इस जगह सिर्फ whole numbers आ सकते हैं. It's going to ignore all of that. It's going to say bullshit. This is an integer, I'm going to treat it as an integer. So वो उसने decimal वाला part delete ही कर दिया. जी, question?
yes sir, उसने 45.5 को round नहीं किया, 45 ले लिया, मतलब point वाला उसने point से लिया नहीं, right?
उसने point वाले को फारिग ही कर दिया, ठीक है ना? So if you want to actually create such variables जिनका decimal भी होंगे, then you have to use a different data type. There's another question, there was a raised hand, वो please बता देंगे? Exactly. Yazan, I'm sorry if I got your name wrong, but you can use float or double here. So essentially, if I want it to be something that can have a decimal place, so I use a data type called double. So the way to declare this is, I'm going to say double age, ये declaration है. पहली दफा जब मैं बताऊंगा, मुझे बताना पड़ेगा कि मैं एक वेरिएबल बना रहा हूँ, कि टाइप जो है वो डबल है, एंड उसके अंदर मैं फिलहाल कुछ स्टोर नहीं करता, ठीक है? एंड देन आई से एज इज इक्वल टू 45.5. सही? सो नाउ इफ आई प्रिंट दिस, सो इट इज एक्चुअली गोइंग टू प्रिंट 45.5 बिकॉज नाउ द कंपाइलर नोज कि ये जो चीज थी ये एक्चुअली डबल था. सो इसमें दो चीजें हुई हैं. पहली चीज लाइन 12 को देखें. लाइन 12 में आई हैव डिक्लेयर्ड अ वेरिएबल ऑफ टाइप डबल. आई एम टेलिंग द कंपाइलर कि मैं तुम्हें जो भी नंबर दूंगा उसके साथ डेसिमल पार्ट भी हो सकता है. जरूरी नहीं है हो, लेकिन हो सकता है. नाउ दिस लाइन 13 इज समथिंग व्हिच इज कॉल्ड एन असाइनमेंट ऑपरेशन. सो आई एम एक्चुअली सेइंग टेक द वैल्यू 45.5, स्टोर इट इन द डब्बा कॉल्ड एज. जी, क्वेश्चन रेज्ड हैंड.
सर इसके अंदर हम लोग एक सिंगल कमांड में ये नहीं लिख सकते डबल एज इज इक्वल टू 45.
जी बिल्कुल 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 कर सकते हैं. आई वाज जस्ट ट्राइंग टू इलस्ट्रेट समथिंग एल्स कि आप वो भी कर सकते हैं. सो 35. सो यहां मैंने क्या किया, पहली दफा मैं कह रहा हूं कि एक वेरिएबल लें एज और उसके अंदर वैल्यू स्टोर कर दें 35 की. ठीक? लाइन 14 में मैं कह रहा हूं नाउ ओवरराइट दिस वैल्यू. सो ये वाला ऑपरेशन जो है ना, दिस इज एक्चुअली एन ओवरराइट ऑपरेशन. सो रिमेंबर मैंने पहली क्लास में कहा था कि राइटिंग टू मेमोरी लोकेशंस इज अ डिस्ट्रक्टिव ऑपरेशन. सो व्हाट आई मेंट वाज कि इनिशियली जब प्रोग्राम शुरू हुआ तो उस वक्त उस डब्बे में वैल्यू थी 35. देन आई स्टोर्ड द वैल्यू 45.5. इसका मतलब है दिस विल ओवरराइट द एग्जिस्टिंग वैल्यू. सो इफ आई प्रिंट दिस नाउ, इट इज गोइंग टू टेल मी 45.5। लेकिन अगर मैं पहले प्रिंट करता, अगर मैं इससे पहले प्रिंट कर देता, तो इट वुड हैव शोन मी कि इनिशियली उसके अंदर वैल्यू थी 35 and then you overwrote it and then it became 45.5. So these are destructive operations. Ji, question? There's a raised hand.
Yes, sir. So the question I wanted to ask was that when you wrote the variables in a single line, right? So what exactly is the value that they were assigned? Since I don't
अच्छा,
think
that
you
is-
assigned a value.
मैं आता हूँ, मैं इस पे आता हूँ। अच्छा, देखो, let's undo some of this and redo this. Okay, there are two kinds of variables जो अभी तक हमने introduce कराए हैं। एक variable है integer, ठीक? It can only have whole numbers, and when I say integer age is equal to 10, so what it does is it creates a location in memory and stores the value 10 in it. ठीक? Then when I print this, the way to print this is I print the value of the variable. It's going to print the value 10. ठीक? So अब इसके अंदर दो चीजें हुई हैं। Line 10 में I'm declaring a variable and assigning it a value. Another way of doing this is कि I declare the variable just like this. ठीक? And then say age is equal to 10. It's the exact same thing. क्योंकि एक जगह मैंने डिक्लेरेशन के साथ ही उसको इनिशियलाइज कर दिया था, दूसरी जगह मैंने डिक्लेयर किया कि एक डब्बा रखो, उसके ऊपर नाम लिख दो एज का। सो गो बैक टू आवर एनालॉजी, go back to this. So I've created a box and I have called it age, and in that box the value that's stored is 10. So if you look at line 10 and 13, essentially what I'm saying is there is a box जिसके अंदर सिर्फ इंटीजर आ सकते हैं और currently उसके अंदर वैल्यू है 10। अरहम you can't and you should not. ठीक है?
Yes, sir, really sorry, but I think that I sort of wasn't clear enough. The question that I was sort of trying to get at was that when you declared multiple variables like age or
जी, मैं उस पे आ रहा हूँ।
GPA,
No, मैं उसमें आ रहा हूँ। Sorry, मैं actually ये जो chat पे question आ रहे थे ना उसको answer कर रहा था। So you're saying age, क्या और क्या variable हो सकता है integer, GPA, ठीक है? So this, what your question was कि यहाँ क्या value stored होगी?
जी।
अच्छा, this is actually compiler dependent because typically compiler will assign it the value 0, लेकिन you can't be sure of that. ठीक है? So what I said was कि इस वक्त compiler ने उसको value 0 assign कर दी है. So लेकिन you can't be sure of that because you should initialize it. So when I say int GPA, age and GPA, I said कि good programming practice है कि अगर आपने उसको 0 देना है तो आप खुद दे दें उसको, so that you know कि इसके अंदर exactly value क्या stored है, क्योंकि if you don't assign it, some compilers will assign it the value 0 and some will not do it. So when you start writing program with this, you will have a problem. So I'm saying initialize it yourself.
तेरे सारे से निकल जाऊंगा।
ठीक है? Now, I'm sorry, I need to go back to a question. Azhan, you said I don't understand this. Can you please
क्या चाहिए?
speak up? What don't you understand?
जो डबल वाला ऑपरेशन था।
कंट्रोलर
आता हूँ, मैं डबल पे आता हूँ। अभी इंटीजर तक तो कोई किसी को मसला नहीं है ना? क्या I can declare an integer, I can use an integer, and
ले आओ ना।
I can actually add integers as well. Integer की हद तक तो कोई किसी को प्रॉब्लम नहीं है,
सर
right?
आई हैव कंफ्यूजन। सर पहले आपने लिखा था एक लाइन में इंट एज 1 कॉमा दूसरा वेरिएबल कॉमा दूसरा वेरिएबल, तो
ठीक है।
उसमें आप कह रहे हैं कि उसको वैल्यू असाइन नहीं होती, अगर ऑटोमेटिकली सिस्टम ने 0 दी हुई होगी तो वो दी होगी,
हाँ।
वरना नहीं असाइन होगी।
Yep.
बेटर इज कि हम असाइन कर दें।
Sorry, it's better कि assign कर दे, बिल्कुल।
ओके ओके
ठीक है? अच्छा, now what I have done is अभी फिलहाल इंटीजर पे ही रहते हैं, फ्लोट डबल्स पे बाद में आते हैं। अब मैंने दो इंटीजर डिक्लेयर किए हैं। Look at line 10 and 11. The first integer is age 1. the second integer is age 2. ये declaration होगी, हमें declaration का पता है कि मैं इस तरह मैं see out age 1 plus age 2. So 14 will look at the box called age 1, get the value, it'll get 10. Then it'll look at the box called age 2, get the value 5. Add both of them and print that to the screen. So this line 14 will essentially print the value 15 on the screen. I can run this program and what happens is कि वो cout पे जब आएगा, जब line 14 पे आएगा, वो इस part को देखेगा. तो इस part का मतलब ये होगा, go into the box called age 1, pull the number out, go into the box called age 2, pull the number out, add them together and print that to the screen. इसमें अभी तक कोई confusion है तो yeah. अब इसमें अगर कोई confusion है तो someone please raise your hand. This is the point to get this resolved. Please private message भेज दें if you're shy, but there is no really. Assume this is the third class in programming. This is the third lecture. So why send a private message? Does the compiler store the sum and then print? Acha, compiler creates the thing, stores it in a register, but does not store it permanently. The compiler एक register में computers के अंदर जब actually you go inside this, there are registers. तो वो एक register में इस value को store करता है, लेकिन it doesn't assign a name to that register. So you can't access it again. You'll have to compute it again. जी अफनान, question?
जी सर इसमें तो आपने किया ना कि उसने दो वेरिएबल्स को सम करके 15 कर दिया ना, age 1 plus age 2 equals 15. अगर हमें चाहिए हो कि हम दो वेरिएबल्स यूज करें और प्रिंट हो 10 plus 5 not the 15, तो वो कैसे करेंगे?
So the way to do this is, अभी हमने पीछे किया था कि इसको देख लेते हैं. We will say 10 plus 5. अब मैं inverted commas डाल दिए, तो वो क्या करेगा, जो कुछ मैं inverted commas में दूंगा उसको as is treat करेगा, उसको evaluate नहीं करेगा और उसको print कर देगा. So now I'm saying 10 plus 5 is equal to 15 because ये जो inverted commas में जो चीज आ गई वो इसको evaluate नहीं करेगा. It will say कि अच्छा ये जो भी है ना इसको print कर दो. And this can actually be anything, right? All of this will be printed as is, right?
सर ये तो हमने खुद टाइप किया है ना, पर ऐसा सोचते कि हम वेरिएबल यूज करें age 1 plus age 2 किसी तरह, और वो उसकी वैल्यू जो स्टोर की हुई है हमने उसको वो प्रिंट आउट कर दे.
अच्छा ठीक है, वो भी हो सकता है. अब ये तुम थोड़ा सा वो हो रहे हो, लेकिन कर लेते हैं. Let's do this. What will this print onto the screen? So this will just print nothing onto the screen. ठीक है? Agreed?
Yes,
but
sir.
if I were to say age, what will it print? Age 1, sorry. Age 1, what will it print? So what gets printed if I say this?
Nothing, sir, I guess.
Sorry?
Nothing.
नहीं. When it gets to this point, it will look inside the box age 1 and print 10. ठीक है? So अब मैंने 10 screen पे print कर लिया, right? This gives me the idea. So now I say age 2. This will print 10 space 5, right?
Right.
तो space की जगह मैं जाके plus डाल देता हूँ. तो वो जो तुम कह रहे थे वो हो गया 10 plus 5. ये हो गया?
Yes,
And
sir.
now I can say on the next line I can say 10 plus 5 is equal to age 1 plus age 2. ठीक है? So वो पहली लाइन में क्या होगा? वो कहेगा 10, फिर literally प्रेस करेगा, प्लस को प्रिंट करेगा, फिर कहेगा इसकी जगह 5 लिखेगा, फिर नीचे वाली जब लाइन 16 पे आएगा तो इसको इवैल्यूएट करके लिखेगा. And this is how we will say 10 plus 5, 15.
Oh, सही sir. All right, sir. Thank you.
So play around with this. This is actually fairly straightforward. Lekin do play around with this. So I'm saying 10 plus 5 is equal to 15. And I actually don't need to do it in the on a separate line. So I will remove this and so all of this will now be printed on the same line. ठीक है? There was a raised hand. Afnan raised hand था. Oh, okay. No raised hand. इंटीजर्स की हद तक कोई प्रॉब्लम है? हमने क्या किया है, हमने दो इंटीजर डिक्लेयर किए हैं, age1, age2. Once I have declared a variable, I can refer to it in the program. So now I can say print age1, print a class, then print age2, then print and print the output. So I'm saying 10 plus 5 is equal to 50. Questions, comments up to this point? Any confusion up to this point? Okay, now I'm going to move to something else, which is the doubles. A lot of times, my program is going to have. Achha, by the way, this is not just addition. I can actually do multiplication as well. So when I say multiplication, it's going to calculate the answer 50. And print that to the screen. I can do, all, and it is going to work. ये सारे mathematical operators defined हैं. अच्छा, it's actually going to divide that and print the answer. So plus, minus, divide, multiply, all of them are defined for now. सही? अच्छा, I know that sometimes I need my numbers to have decimal places as well. So for instance, if age 2 was 3, ये देखते हैं, मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, मैं age 1 को age 2 से divide कर रहा हूँ. When you divide 10 by 3, what do I get? I get 3.333. लेकिन वो print क्या करेगा? वो value कर रहा है 3 की print. वो इसलिए 3 की print कर रहा है because I am actually treating these integers. ठीक? So if I want my number to have a decimal value, so इस तरीके से ये नहीं हो सकता, क्योंकि अगर मैं इसके अंदर डेसिमल वैल्यू दूंगा तो वो उसको डिस्कार्ड कर देगा, वो 3.33 को 3 ही समझेगा. ठीक है? सो द वे टू रिप्रेजेंट डेसिमल नंबर्स इज समथिंग कॉल्ड अ डबल. सो इफ आई से डबल, बजाय इंटीजर के मैं दोनों को डबल कह देता हूं, बाकी सारी चीजें सेम है, लेकिन now I'm actually telling the program that this is a number that can actually have decimal values as well. So when I run this, it gave me the answer 3.33333, which is what it's supposed to be. Because otherwise, the computer will treat whatever answer I give as just an integer and will discard the decimal part. The computer is dumb. The computer will treat all the zeros and ones as just an integer and print that. So this is why I need डेसिमल नंबर्स, क्योंकि अगर मैंने ये इंटीजर डिक्लेयर किया होता तो मेरा आंसर गलत है, क्योंकि 10 डिवाइड बाय 3 आंसर 3 नहीं है, 3.33 है. लेकिन कंप्यूटर के लिए ये बिल्कुल 3 ही आंसर है. तो इफ आई वांटेड टू थिंक कि द आंसर इज 3.33, आई विल नीड टू टेल द कंप्यूटर कि डेसिमल प्लेसेस को भी कंसीडर करें. एंड द वे टू क्रिएट डेसिमल प्लेसेस इज बाय हैविंग द वेरिएबल एज डबल रादर देन एज इंटीजर. इंटीजर वो सिर्फ होल नंबर कंसीडर करता है, लेकिन डबल it knows that now the answer can have decimal values as well. So when I say double age 1, all I'm saying is create a very similar dabba that you created previously, but this time this dabba can have decimal places as well. ठीक? Questions, comments up to this point? अच्छा. So double is a variable for decimal values. Yes, Tanir. Lukman, if one variable is an integer and the other is a double, you will end up with compiler specific nonsenses. So I would say that if your numbers have decimal values, the behavior is defined. लेकिन once again, मेरी advice ये होगी कि अगर आपको पता है कि आपके ये numbers जो हैं ये counter है, तो counter 1 से 2 से 3 से 4 पे ही जाएगा, उसको integer रखें. लेकिन अगर आपको ये पता है कि इस variable में mathematical operations की values आनी है, उसको double ही रखें, क्योंकि if you know exactly what the behavior is, then you're not left to the vagaries of the compiler. ठीक है? If one is a variable and one is an integer, you're going to end up with unexpected consequences. Yes, Adil, it actually upgrades the variable. Agar if one of these is an integer and one of this is a double, the compiler will fix this for you, but you should not rely on that. अब देखो मैंने एक integer रखा, एक double रखा, compiler will realize that you are making a mistake and will fix your mistake. But I'm saying don't do it. It's not good habit. The compiler will try to be helpful और वो उसको पता होगा एक इंटीजर है इसको मैं डबल से डिवाइड कर रहा हूँ वो आंसर को डबल ही रखेगा उसका डेसिमल पार्ट रिटेन करेगा. But I'm saying don't do it because it's bad programming habit. Because if you know कि इसकी डेसिमल वैल्यूज आ रही है तो उसको डबल से शुरू करो. ठीक है? So one of them being double is a mistake. Keep all them doubles. If you know कि आंसर में डेसिमल आना है तो डबल रखो उसको. ठीक है? Otherwise the compiler fixes it. वो जो हायर कास्ट होती है उस पर ले जाता है उसको टाइप कास्ट कर लेता है. लेकिन मैं इस वक्त उन चीजों में अभी जाना नहीं चाह रहा. Already this is confusing for some. So इसलिए explicitly अगर आपको पता है कि इसमें डेसिमल वैल्यूज आएंगी तो treat it as something जिसके अंदर डेसिमल वैल्यूज आएंगी. ठीक है? Now back to my data types. The first is integer. These are whole numbers, and then you have these doubles that can have floating points numbers. That means decimal numbers. Then there is another data type which is actually called a string. ठीक है? अब ये string data type is exactly what it suggests. This is actually a string data type. कि आप उसके अंदर किसी भी किस्म का स्ट्रिंग स्टोर कर सकते हैं. ठीक है? और इसको इंक्लूड करने के लिए so when I run this program it is going to sorry actually string के लिए मुझे ऊपर string डिक्लेयर करना चाहिए था लेकिन चले string से या string से ही कर रहा है. लेकिन essentially typically when I use the string data type what I do is I actually tell the compiler to include string.h, right? And this is what the library wali thing is. Okay, I want to utilize the data type string, and since the computer does not know what the data type string is, go look at this library and wahan you will find कि string data type क्या होती है. और string data type जो होती है, it actually allows you to have strings in it. So I can say string ASDF is equal to ASDF, and when I say cout string, मैं इसको नाम को बेहतर दे देता हूँ string 1. And when I say cout string 1, it will actually print that string 1 to the screen. And these are the 3 or 4 data types that you really need to worry about. मैंने यहाँ character भी लिखी हुई है data type पर, ignore that for now, और boolean को भी ignore करें. As far as you're concerned, integer, double, string. We need to know how to declare an integer. The way to declare an integer is, first of all, you tell the computer, this is an int data type, and I'm going to call it my integer, and I'm going to give it a value 0. Then I'm going to create another data type, and I'm going to call it a double, my double, and I'm going to store the value 10 in it. And then I'm going to say string and I'm going to say okay, my string is store this and this. Okay? So I can now print each of them, do a bunch of manipulations with each of them, and all of this I should be able to do because this is predefined behavior, and computer knows that when I say print a string, it knows what to do because I have included the appropriate libraries at the top. And when I say print my integer, it knows what to do because again, हमें पता है कि this dabba has a 0 and I'm going to print that to the screen. And similarly, when I say print my double, it knows कि इस डब्बे में क्या पड़ा हुआ है, वो इसको जाके 10 को print कर देगा screen के ऊपर. So this is the only thing that we need to worry about. अच्छा, what if we give it a decimal value that is at integer? करके देख लेते हैं. अगर मैं इसको जाके 0.4 कह देता हूँ और कहता हूँ print my integer, the compiler will realize that I have made a mistake and discard that part because it knows that 0.4 जो है वो integer में store नहीं हो सकता. So when I say 0.4, it's going to store only a 0 in there. Okay? So Azhan, that should answer your question. Can you give a double value of whole number? Yeah, you can give. So when I say double is equal to 10, the compiler होता पता क्या है? ये सारी जो variables है ना, there are actually physical memory places. मैं आपको दिखाता हूँ physical memory places. This is actually the physical memory. So when I say integer, वो इसके अंदर जाके थोड़ी सी जगह रिजर्व कर लेता है कि ये जो 4 बाइट्स है ना, इसके अंदर इंटीजर स्टोर होगा. So whenever I refer to this program again, it actually goes, it translates that and says कि जो भी किधर चीज है ना, इसको as an integer treat करो. So when I try to store, class में थोड़ी सी बात करेंगे. Actually, when I try to store 0.4 here, it's going to store all zeros because it doesn't know where to store the decimal part. Similarly, if I actually store a whole number as a double, let's say I say my double is equal to 10, तो जो इसके पास जो reserved space है ना for the decimal part, उसके अंदर कुछ नहीं है, लेकिन जो whole number वाली space है उसके अंदर उसने 10 store किया हुआ. So आधे हिस्से में उसने 10 store कर लिया, बाकी आधा हिस्सा खाली है अभी. It's assuming at some point something might come here, but there is storage space for that part. So I can store something there, a whole number there, like it will still keep space for the floating part, for the decimal part. ठीक है? अच्छा. Yeah, so असदुल्ला इस पे आते हैं एक सेकंड जरा. Okay. So मैं एक क्वेश्चन आंसर कर दूं. ये जो आपका क्वेश्चन है ना कि why do I want to store an integer at all if we have doubles? The reason for this is that doubles obviously require more space because you're keeping storage for the other part. And hence, if you only use doubles, आपके level पे तो नहीं पता चलेगा. लेकिन this is the reason Windows is a lot slower than Mac because it's not good programming. So, when you start over allocating memory, if you know that a number is not going to go beyond 10, then you don't need to have a big storage for that because you know that 1 से लेकर 10 तक ही होंगे. It can only take 10 values. So when you over provision, that's when you have a problem. So you don't want to over provision. आपके level पे ये programming में फर्क नहीं पता चलेगा आपको. आपके level पे आप ints रखें या doubles रखें, इतना फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. लेकिन when you start writing big programs, the size of the number is actually going to start affecting the performance of your program. Anyway, at this point, let's stop. क्योंकि मुझे लग रहा है कि मेरी अपने धुआं निकल गया, तो I don't know आप लोगों के क्या हालात हैं. So what I would do is, I would actually expect you to do something. Abdullah, it seems that my compiler does not need to write string .h at the start. Lekin I thought it did, but it apparently is already knows कि string.h से जाके आप उठा लें. But there'll be other data types जिसके लिए हमें include करना पड़ेगा. So yeah, apparently you don't need to do this include string.h. ठीक है? लेकिन बाज़ जगह हम इसको करेंगे. Right now I've deleted it and it still works. वो हम लुकमान हम उस पे आएंगे. वो हम वेरिएबल टाइप नहीं डिफाइन कर रहे हैं मेन के साथ, लेकिन फिलहाल उसको इग्नोर करें. फिलहाल I just want you to guys, let's not do anything else. Let's stop at this point and let's look at what we have done. Every program starts with this template. There is include IOStream. There is a main function, open bracket and close bracket, is that you can declare an integer, you can declare a double, and you can declare a string. And you can print all of these things to the screen as well. ठीक है? इससे आगे हम नहीं जाएंगे. So let's stop at this point and go get coffee. Ji, Tanir, if you have understood this, you can leave. If you haven't understood this, stay back. I'll go over this again. Acha, after 5 is supposed to be for the people who still have problems with the assignments. Your TAs will be there. Azhan, yes, the class has officially ended. But if you don't understand this, please stay back. After 5, your TAs will be there to help you with the assignment because I want everyone to finish the assignment. So we'll stop at this point. And